Turning now to Decision 2024, it is the Monday morning after a bombshell weekend, a race turned completely upside down by President Joe Biden reading the tea leaves, the polls, and making that difficult, historic decision to step down from the presidential race. Biden also endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, a woman of color in her 50s, a former senator and prosecutor who stands in stark contrast to the nearly 80-year-old former president, the 34-time convicted felon whose last administration ended in a violent riot at the Capitol. Joining us to discuss this and more and what happens next is political analyst and host of Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640. It's a long title, but it's worth repeating. Good morning. Thank you for being here on this historic day. Okay, an incumbent president has not dropped out of the race since '68, Johnson, with pressure from the Vietnam War. Put into context this huge decision that puts party before himself.
It's a historic decision, but let's not forget, remember, Joe Biden ran as a transitional figure. He was supposed to be just a one-term president, and we had Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate. If things went true to form, we still would have ended back right here. We just had a tumultuous, I would say, 2 weeks, and we had the debate, and people couldn't have foreseen that, but this is where we are. It was a tremendous decision, and we don't know what next week is going to bring, but if you look back, if you pull back big picture, this was always supposed to be the way.
Yeah, but a difficult decision for him, for sure.
Absolutely.
And in the wake of it, you have the Republicans really going after it. They say they're in panic now. They weren't expecting this, but wanted it. Speaker Johnson says he's going to invoke the 25th Amendment, saying that if he's not fit to run, he's not fit to serve. That's on the Republican side. Democrats, though, see it differently, that this is a huge and courageous move, selfless move on the part of the president. Listen to what pundit Van Jones had to say, and then I'll talk to you about it on the other side.
It's kind of like when your grandpa, you got to take the keys, and everybody, you got to take his keys, you got to take his keys, you got to, and he's fighting and he's fighting, and everybody's so frustrated, and then you finally get the keys back, and then you just cry, because this is somebody that you love, this is somebody that you care about, this is somebody who was there for you, this is somebody you wouldn't be here without him, and you have to take something from him.
All right, Van Jones is not alone. There are a lot of Democrats that feel this way. Many believe this has been a historic presidency with the Inflation Reduction Act, bipartisan infrastructure bill, et cetera, et cetera. Put into context his legacy, 50 years of service.
50 years of service cannot be argued. His accomplishments as president cannot be argued. But also there is a degree of unfairness where you had the Democratic Party move mountains to make sure that the primary schedule lined up for Joe Biden, and also that there were not other participants who jumped in the race. And then that same Democratic Party and apparatus turned on him and unceremoniously dumped him with these public the dismissal of him. So I think Joe Biden is going to be remembered fondly when history tells the story. But right now, I would understand if he has a bitter taste in his mouth.
Oh, sure. I mean, and do you blame the Democratic Party leadership for that as well? Basically not really backing him at a time when they most needed to? Yeah,
and it started as a whisper campaign, and then it got to be a loud roar where you had all these very prominent party leaders from Nancy Pelosi, even Adam Schiff, and other members who were publicly saying, I think you should step aside. That's unheard of, and that's not what you do to your incumbent president.
Right. All right, let's talk Kamala Harris. She's endorsed by President Biden. She's been endorsed by a lot of the Democrats now. And her memes are already, like, off the chain. Take a look at this one. Yes, we can. Do we have that? There you go. Yes, we can. Plain off. Yes, we can, of course. And here's her first post, which was really bold and assertive. It says, I prosecuted sex predators. Trump is one. I shut down for-profit scam colleges. He ran one. I held big banks accountable. He's owned by them. I'm not just prepared to take on Trump. I'm prepared to beat him. Talk about the Kamala Harris we're seeing right now out of the gate.
Well, in 24 hours, the Democratic base went from demoralized to energized. And if you look at this meme campaign, it's kind of reminiscent of what Barack Obama did, making sure that you have those small donors. And you had that conference call last night of some 44,000 women primarily who are already all in for Kamala Harris. Say what you want about the prospect of whether she can win. You cannot argue with this has changed the whole perception of the race. The energy is there. It's something that the Democrats did not have, but they desperately needed. And if you talk about closing the enthusiasm gap, Kamala Harris did that one day.
Not only that, she raised over $60 million, and those small donations are still rolling in. Remind us, she has been a many firsts, DA and then AG and then senator. Talk to us about what she brings to a really demoralized party now invigorated.
Well, she reminds the Democratic base where their bread and butter is. If you talk about black women, you're talking about Democrats. If you talk about California and the strength of California, how historically California has led when it comes to politics and presidential politics, she reminds, I would say, the wider electorate of that. Of course, yes, she was the first this and the first that, but she was also a competent first this, competent attorney general, competent San Francisco DA. People may not agree with her record, but they can't disagree with her competency.
Right. But in this vice presidency, she has failed to really stand out and shine. She's been criticized for that. Her approval ratings are not much better, at 38, the lowest, along with Biden's, and a matchup with Trump only ahead, 2 points above Biden. So, when all the hoopla dies down, do you think she still carries the momentum? She
does carry the momentum. It's her momentum to lose. She generated it. She can sustain it or she can lose it. As far as her time as vice president, I would actually blame, most respectfully, Joe Biden, because as the president, it's your job to prepare your heir apparent. She was the heir apparent talking about what this was originally supposed to be, and I don't think he adequately prepared her in a national sense, in a perception sense, for her to easily step into that role. Now she has a very an abridged apprenticeship, as you will, and so now she has to quicken her pace, but she can do it.
The president sent her to the Biden to look at root causes. That did not turn out well for her. The border crisis is going to be front and center for the Republican platform, as you just saw. Can she overcome that?
She can overcome it. It's just a matter of whether she's prepared to meet the moment, and that remains to be seen. She did not do well on the border. She did not do well as far as owning that moment, but we also know that the border issue was something that she can turn on Republicans and say, hey, the Democrats had a plan. President Trump tried to intervene and then killed the deal, but we are still ready to move forward.
Right, and the Republicans already attacking her on that note as well, but also saying she covered up Biden's health issues, and that's on her as well. But most predictive could be what Nikki Haley had to say. Take a listen.
Most Americans do not want a rematch between Biden and Trump. The first party to retire its 80-year-old candidate is going to be the party that wins this election.
True?
I don't know. America has a long history of not necessarily backing women. I hate to be cynical, but yes, we retired one of the 80-year-olds, but America still has to prove that she is ready to step into the moment.
Yes, but Democrats were losing the youth vote.
Yes, they were.
Over Gaza and other things, general apathy. Does this invigorate the youth vote and bring it back?
No, it absolutely does. She's going to be able to speak to younger people in the way that Joe Biden could not. She would be able to speak to women in a way that Joe Biden could not, and people of color in a way that Joe Biden could not. So all it's there is there for the Democrats. And if the Democrats unify behind one candidate, the math alone, because there are more registered Democrats than there are Republicans, the Democrats, it's there for them to win. But historically, they've never been that unified.
So the black men have been hemorrhaging the Democratic Party and going more and more toward Trump. Does this bring back the black male vote?
I don't know if it brings back the black male vote, but I honestly think that has been overblown and overstated, if only because black women tend to vote almost 2-to-1 over black men. And again, the Republicans aren't trying to take a lot of black men. They don't need a lot of black men. They just need a percentage here and a percentage there in key states or key counties, key areas to swing states in elections. I think it's overblown, but you will see more of a pull back to the Democratic side.
So this is not a done deal. This is not going to be a coordination, say the DNC. But who could challenge her? Could there be an open convention, or is it really way too late?
I think it's way too late, and you see that there's no one who's rushing to jump in. Joe Manchin, he's stood down. You've seen Gavin Newsom, he's endorsed Kamala Harris. So there's no one who's at the ready to step in to further thwart or also signify more division within the party.
VP potential candidate, Pritzker, Cooper.
There's a wealth of talent out there, but the short answer is it depends on how big the Democrats want to go. If they want to go big, to your point about whether they elect a woman, how about Gretchen Whitmer? They need Michigan.
You think 2 women on the ticket would actually fly?
If you're going to go big, go big. This is the time where this is an unprecedented time. Why the hell not? You have to go big. They've already pushed all their chips into the center, so go ahead and play the big hand. And if they don't do that, you can always go with Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. You need Pennsylvania as well.
How about Pritzker from Illinois?
Good, but I think they still get Illinois without Pritzker. That's my only concern.
All right, and finally, the endorsements have come in. Clinton, obviously, Biden. Not from Barack Obama. Now, he says it's because he doesn't want it to be a coronation. He wants to give Biden his due. Anything more there?
Yeah, I don't want to read anything more into that. And I think there's something to be said for just waiting back and not putting your thumb on the scale. There's always time to endorse. If he does it tomorrow, does it change anything? If he does it next week, does it change anything? I think not. And it's okay to lay out and lay in the weeds.
Exhausted, invigorated? How do you take this?
Oh, I'm exhausted because I know because next week all this could change. No one knows how this is going to turn out. And what is happening right now is not determinative of what's going to be happening a week from now. The polls are going to change. The situation is going to change. There are going to be skeletons. There are going to be debates. There's no telling where this is leading.
But you have to absolutely agree. It has changed the narrative. It was all assassination. It was all about GOP convention.
Absolutely. Just from the donor base alone. Raised $50 million last night. They inherited another $96 million from Joe Biden. The race has fundamentally changed.
Mo Kelly, thanks for coming in. Please come in every day. We're going to need you.
We'll
be right back, everyone. We'll continue our team coverage as our morning continues.